green lights.
Okay, can hear you now? Oh, good. Okay, try again, Jen. Yep, Chris, you're good.
Hello, hello.
Oh, you're both muting yourselves.
Hello.
Chris, I can hear you.
Julie, can you hear me now?
Jen, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I have green lights.
No, that's okay though.
Good. Because I can't hear myself when I'm talking to you. That's weird. Should I go ahead? Okay, here we go. Well, this is nice to finally get to talk to you. We were scheduled a couple of months ago and ended up having a
Can you hear
blizzard,
me?
which slowed us down a bit. Just as a
Can't see
reminder,
you
we're
now,
from David Worcester Middle School in Stratford, Connecticut. If you need to put a little map to where that is, just to kind of
I told you that the other
give
day.
you a better picture. We're a little school on the north shore of Long Island Sound.
Where's my webcam?
Here's a little aerial view of our building, and we've included the Worcester Park and Pond that are behind our school, because that's where lots of what we're doing right now happens. It's only a short walk, about 5 minutes or so, to get from the school to the pond area, although it's not easy to get into the woods because there's no bridge to get across the stream, so we can't quite do that. All of the fields in the pond and all of that were actually a former brownfield site, which makes it kind of an interesting place to go and visit. It was all part of the former Raymark Industries, and it's all been reclaimed land. So everything you see is as part of the fields and such out behind our school. They took off about 6 feet of dirt and refilled it in with clean fill not too long ago. It was actually after the school was built, though. So just a little back history of the of the place that we're dealing with. Here's a little close up of the pond from this fall when we had some students go out and start to do some of their investigation there. As you can see, lots of trees, nice area, easy to get to. It's been actually great to have our kids be able to, go out and get out in the environment for a change. It's interesting for us. This is our first year with Globe at all. Nobody in our school had essentially ever heard of Globe, nor had they any idea what a Globe protocol was. So we got a lot of questions about the bird box that we put up and the bat house that we put up and other things like that. But we did kind of forge ahead with in two ways. One of which was with my 8th grade students doing some in-class work, where we tied in some pieces from our chemistry unit and with the Globe protocols. And then we also established an after-school program, which has been a real benefit. We've actually drawn students that neither Jen nor I teach in on this one, and that's been really great, along with another teacher who's become really interested in the program. So that's been a really positive connection that we've made in and throughout the building, and it's really been a positive thing. I'll talk more about that later. So with all that said, that's kind of what we were thinking when we first got running. We're like, oh my God, we have to set up a weather station, we have to establish protocols, we have to run GPS things, we have to muck out our site, we have to blah, blah, and we're kind of overwhelmed, but like anything, you just plug through it and just go. And soon enough, your kid's energy and takes you through, and you get past the goggles on our little friend there. Teacher standing there in the middle. We've actually pulled in a number of other folks on this project, and it's been great to have people besides us actually starting to get out and guide and lead our students as they made their first attempts at gathering information. So, when we started, especially with my students in the classroom, we used an activity from our original Globe training a long time ago, which just had the kids start to think about natural spaces that they enjoyed being at, and to write 1, 2, or 3 words or short phrases about those spaces, which we then sort of categorized into some large categories: biosphere, geosphere, anthrosphere, hydrosphere, et cetera, et cetera. And from there, I gave them an article actually that came out of a Hudson Valley agricultural magazine about growing garlic and how the changing of climate was affecting garlic growers in the area. And then we had them take what they knew about their town and their favorite place and start to generate some ideas and some questions about how their own interaction with natural areas in their town and their city connected to the article, and questions they might have about what might be going on in their own climate and in their own weather patterns that would be a connection between the two places. And there's a couple of kind of overall like questions. What did they start to think about? There's about 10 of those hanging up around my room, and they've guided us. They've guided us throughout some of our year, because our overarching question, and the question that we first left Colorado thinking about, was how does climate change affect patterns in life? And specifically, we started to connect that to how does climate change, what effect does it have on insects and insect-borne diseases? Because one of the things that's very prevalent, including in our town, is the increase of diseases like West Nile virus and equine, yeah, I can't say it now, equine encephalitis. And so we were leading them to a question about how and where changes in climate might affect insect populations then affecting, of course, insects being the vector for the diseases. So it ties really nicely with our 7th grade life science curriculum. It ties really nicely with Globe protocols, and has given us a framework to sort of guide us along the way. First steps, we had to build everything. We had nothing there, and just teaching the kids the basics of how to measure, how to cut, how to, well, frankly, dig holes was important. They kind of realized that our school grounds are built on solid rock, but they were so excited they actually lined up to use the post hole digger to dig a hole to put the post in, and which was kind of funny. Anyway, we also, this was one of the sites we used for phenology data in getting some of the trees around the front side of the school. But we were successful. We got it put up, and we've been collecting weather data ever since. Speaking of weather and some other things, we had a lot of fits and starts to our school year this year. Started off with a week-long loss to Hurricane Sandy. We lost another week to blizzards. Power outages knocked us out for a day, and several other snow days. And they all happen to happen on Thursdays, which is exactly the when we have and had our Globe after school group. So they've missed a bunch of days, but you know, I guess that's the way it is. We also ran into one other obstacle, as you know. Oh, there's some more of the snowstorm. That's my daughter Erin on the right, and one of my cars on the left. We also ran into a little bit of other obstacle, which was that after the Newtown event, less than a couple of weeks later, when we were back in school, there was a major lockdown in our building because there were 4 people with rifles outside in the woods behind our building. It turned out that there were only some kids with pellet guns, not the brightest kids, I might say, and yes, one of them was one of my former students. But we were then forbidden to be outside for close to 3 months, while the police department and the Board of Education worked out protocols for what to do if we're outside with students, and and there was a lockdown type event. It certainly wasn't ever something I would have thought myself contemplating all that much, to be honest with you, but it turned out to be a big thing. Luckily, during that time, we were able to, I'm going to skip ahead a second here. We were able to kick our kids into what we have been calling the Mosquito Project. And this turned out to be a real fun and interesting 2 to 3 month project where we did a little bit of research with using mosquito eggs and larvae. And I think Jen's going to take over here for a little bit and tell you about that experience.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Because I can't hear myself. Okay, great. So with the Mosquito Project, actually we started off with an old colleague of ours that has since moved schools that's taking part in a project through the Peabody Museum at Yale, which hopefully Chris and I are going to get hooked up with this summer. And they were looking at also at mosquitoes and pathogens, and she had access to some of the eggs and the equipment and actually came in and set up and helped us set up some experiments. I'm not sure how to move the screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so she already had some experience with this in her classes. She came in, you know, started talking about the life cycle and got them talking about what they've noticed about mosquitoes and insects in general in Connecticut, and you know how things have been changing. And then they started the whole list of what they were wondering, what they wanted to know. So from that, they actually got a pretty good list going. And from that, we broke them up into groups, and where we go. They actually started designing their own experiments. They had one day that they planned out the experiments. We kind of gave them a basic, you know, the sheet to go through and set it up. And we went through the life cycle, how they're going to go from eggs to the larva and different the different stages. So this is just one example where they're looking at the effect of temperature on if they actually got to adulthood or not. So they put the eggs in the fridge. And I don't recall if this one actually worked out in the end. Did have a few problems with a couple of them, and in the conclusion, none of them forgot to feed their larvae, so we didn't always get them going as they wanted. But this right here is she's holding where the eggs actually hatched in. So they started a number of those, and they got to the larvae. Some of them split them up into the different jars. Yeah, except for other ones that finally escaped, and Chris finally had it because the mosquitoes are starting to attack the kids in his room. I was free and clear. My room's downstairs. We were doing this in his room for a reason. But anyways, they had one day to plan it, one day they set everything up, and then they actually, over the next couple of weeks, they would go during science class or pretty much during science classes, and they would check on them. So this is a nice close-up that Chris got, some of the larvae. And the kids, you know, they would go during class, they would check, they'd come back down. It took 5 minutes, it took a couple weeks to check on them, and then they were able to finally put them all together. Yeah, they're not actually as big as they look. It was a nice big, nice close up. Okay, here's a couple of them collecting. You can see some of the water got a little cloudy. This was one of theirs at the end. One of our students, Barry, decided to. He wanted to look at one of his under the microscope. Although I don't recall, Chris, did you ever figure out if it was male or female? And they worked on this for a couple weeks, which worked out really well with the whole lockdown and when we couldn't go out. This is, over the winter, so it was kind of a nice little break until the springtime. And basically, some of them got some good results, some of them did not, as I said, mainly because they forgot to feed them. But we are going to continue this in the spring, and I can tell you for a fact, yesterday, I've already seen a few mosquitoes out because I got bitten by one in the backyard. So I know they're already out and and running. So we're going to try to follow up. We want to get someone from the agriculture experiment in to talk to them. I'm trying to get someone from CDC with Globe, but also my classes because I do pathogens and we do a little bit with insect-borne diseases and life science. And also to start monitoring and having them collect cases of West Nile virus over the summer. The nice thing was when we first started this in the fall, the kids had just started hearing about West Nile in the news since it's really big here around July and August. So it was kind of easy to talk to when we got back, and it's probably going to start coming up again to lead from this year into next year. And all right, so far some of the spring plans, since it's finally nice enough and we can go outside, is we've been starting with the green up. We did the green down, and actually let me go back to that because we kind of skipped over it. And actually, I'll let Chris do the pond sites in a second. We were able to do the green down. The kids did a pretty good job. They went around, they established a couple of trees that were their trees, and they tried to pick the ones away from the building, and basically we went for all the native trees and not any of the invasives. And they were doing a pretty good job. We had success for a little while until we had one good thunderstorm, and unfortunately, they were still leaves on the tree until the hurricane hit, and then that kind of wiped out the rest of our green down. So green up, they've started, same trees, they've already picked them all, they've even named a couple of them. We've got some interesting names. We've got the big one in the back is Dumbledore. One of the ones in the front the girls decided last week was a Ninja Narwhal. I don't know where they came up with the names, but they're entertained.
I can mention it briefly.
So they've been watching the same ones. The buds all of a sudden went from nothing to it looks like they're probably ready to pop, and we're going to go out and look at them again tomorrow.
A small pond. It's not.
So we will see. Since we will be in school until the end of June at this point, they should be able to get some good data on their
one at the input stream,
on
two in the pond
trees
itself,
that they're
one
following.
near a major stormwater
Chris,
outflow
I don't know
pipe
if you
and
want
one
to talk
away
about
from a
the
stormwater
pond,
outflow
since that's
pipe.
kind of been your baby
And
with all
then
the
we have
hydrology
a
work.
fourth site, which is down over just beyond a small little dam that drains the pond out at the far side. And we've been out and had various amounts of success getting complete sets of data, but we have lots of incomplete sets of data as our kids kind of get used to using it, using the equipment and using the protocols, as well as trying to accomplish it all in a 47-minute class period, which includes the time to walk in and out. So so it's been a challenge to put it all together, but it's coming along, and that's been a really good thing. We added the little goose picture down there in the bottom right-hand corner. One of the things that some of our kids became interested in early on was the effect of the absolutely massive goose population and what effect that might have on the pond ecosystem itself. And on any given day, between the fields and the pond, you can have multiple hundreds of geese out there. So we may try to find a way to tie that in next year, but it's certainly not going to come as part of our explorations this year. So forward through the mosquitoes again, so I don't creep too many people out.
Yeah.
You mentioned spring plans, and there's one of the things we did want to mention is that one sort of an unintended consequence. Kind of Jen and I came back and figured that we were going to just sort of take this uh, and run with it with our kids in our classes and see what happened. But with the release of the new science standards yesterday and the conversations that have been going on with other science teachers in our building, there looks to be a much bigger inclusion of Globe stuff into our classroom curriculum and collaboration next year, which we're both really excited about. And there have been a couple really unexpected things. We were approached by a couple of other teachers in the school about supporting them in their efforts to create a school garden and to do it in an environmentally sensitive way, and that's actually taken off this spring. We have been successful in actually securing a little bit of funding for them through our PTSA and through our one of our after-school programs, strictly as a result of the fact that it's tied to active science in our classrooms, which is something that is really a really big thing. Multiple science teachers have joined in with us about what we're doing. And probably one of the coolest little facts is down there at the bottom is we almost didn't recruit anybody. We started and recruited a few folks, and all of a sudden the kids were recruiting each other, and they continue to do that. We continue to get new kids into the program, a lot of them through Jen's classroom actually, and each week almost it seems like we have another kid and another kid and another kid joining in, which has been fantastic. And I think they love the idea of just doing science. And I should say that the kids recruiting kids piece is not our in-class part, it's the after-school piece. So we've gone from 8, 9, 10 up to 12, 13, 14, and the number continues to grow, which has been fantastic. A couple other interesting things. I was able to write and secure a grant to get some additional vernier probe layer for hydrology measurements, which has been awesome. We're purchasing that almost as we speak for a number of the different hydrology protocols. I know that there's not always direct connections between vernier and globe, but it's what our district has had as a product of another grant-funded program we did years ago, and it continues that way. And as it turns out, Yale University this year is doing a one-week summer institute on vector-borne diseases and climate change. And I found out just a couple days ago I've been accepted to go ahead and do that. So it ties directly into the work that we've done through Globe, which is going to be an awesome connection, and it will sort of continue, I hope, where the Learning to Research program will, I guess, unfortunately, sort of come to a close. So, of course, we couldn't have gotten this started without all of you. And your energy through the webinars and through the time out in Colorado and your advice and expertise has been amazing. And we hope that we continue to connect in some way as time goes on. So I think that's the end. Oh, yeah, our kids refuse to let us do this without including some of their class pets. So there we go.
Yep.
To answer Bob's question, yes, we've been using the live question vernier probes for temperature, for conductivity and
Yes.
pH now.
Which unfortunately not actually in
We'll
either of our
also
room. It's in
have
another science teacher who is
dissolved oxygen
joined us at
sensors
the
as well
beginning. He
as
still
flow rate
is helping out
sensors.
occasionally. So
And
yes, these were
I don't
our
know who else is
mascots at
supposed
the
to be
beginning of the
doing
year.
purchasing, but yes, so we are connecting to that and using the LabQuest stuff for it.
Thanks, Jen and Chris. I'm going to put Gary on. Try this again. Okay, Gary, you are on. Hopefully you keep power.